Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This week's guests are former Ohio State basketball player David Lighty and BTN researcher Harold Shelton. Let's get into it.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy.
Look at here. With the catch, the finish. Oh, my goodness. What a catch. Energy, enthusiasm. It's picked off. It's selfish. Brilliant.
He's still going. Touchdown.
All right, I'm very pleased to be joined by former Ohio State Buckeye hooper, a longtime professional basketball player as well. It is David Lighty. You can track him down on Twitter at OSU Lighty23. David, how's it going, man? How are you?
Not too bad, man. We're here relaxing, getting ready to start up the season. See how's it going with this COVID stuff and everything.
Yeah, so you're overseas now, over in France, I believe, and appreciate you jumping on at a late hour over there, not so late in the afternoon over here in Chicago. But first off, just take us through everywhere you've been since leaving Ohio State almost a decade ago now, and kind of take us through your professional journey, if you could.
Yeah, a decade. Wow, yeah. Time is flying for sure. I still remember committing to Ohio State. So, yeah, a decade out. But my first year out, I played in Cantu, Italy. It was a great experience, probably 20, 30 minutes north of Milan, Lake Como. Beautiful place. You can see the Swiss Alps and everything. So my experience overseas for my first year was amazing. To be in a great place like that, in a great location, and with a great team, and playing at the highest level in EuroLeague. So it was definitely something that popped my eyes open to the different culture and everything, that was new to me. But it was a experience that I embraced for sure. And then after that, I've been in France basically the next 8 years of my career, and one more year in Italy. I went back, but other than that, yeah, I've been France and Italy the past 10 years, this whole decade. So some great cities, man. I lived in Paris for 2 years and won a couple championships there, and now I'm going on my 6th year here in Lyon, kind of southeast of in the country of France.
Yeah, I was going to test my French out real quick because I took it in high school. I was going to say, not bad places to be, like you mentioned, Italy and France, and my last name is French. So I looked up your team. Is it Villebon? How do you pronounce it?
Villebon.
Villebon, okay. So
Villebon.
I guess my teachers would be disappointed. I'm already failing my post-grad test.
I'm still struggling. I'm mad at myself, though. I should speak fluent by now.
I at least know Lyon, right? So that's a good spot to be, I assume. What's the lifestyle like over there right now with – like you kind of touched on it with COVID, and it seemed like when I was talking to guys and people on the podcast months ago, when overseas was kind of ahead of us in the progression as far as, the virus being serious and it kind of shutting down society. And then now it's reversed, right? Like we're still kind of locked down over here. And I feel like I see images overseas where things are opened back up. So how's it going with the pandemic overseas?
Not too bad. I will say this area right now in France is one of the higher risk areas, but it's still, like you said, it's not like in the States right now. So for sure, I'm in a pretty calmer situation, but it's still mask mandatory, social distancing and things of that nature. Still probably no clubs or like pubs really open. So it's progressing slowly but surely, but still for sure. Is something that is really, highly talked about, and people have to be aware of it.
Yeah, well, hopefully we get basketball back. It's kind of like it looks like we're going to get hoops back over here. It looks like they're progressing, toward a relatively normal season. But I do want to hear a little more about your overseas career, because like whenever I have former overseas hoopers on the podcast, it's one of my favorite things to ask about. Like I feel like the wildest stories come from playing and the culture shock that comes along with it and the way fans react. I feel like you got to have something from over 10 years overseas, something unique that maybe you tell people when they ask what it's like playing in Europe.
Culture shock would probably be the biggest thing, I would say. Like I said, I've been in great cities, so it hasn't been that big of a change. I was like I said, 20 minutes from Milan. So it's a lot of tourists. So people speak a lot of English. I lived in Paris for 2 years, and for sure, it's a lot of English going on there. And London was 2 hours away by train, an hour by flight. So you would always hear it, walking on the strip or, being in the center of Paris. And then Lyon is, the second or third biggest city in France. So it's the same here as well. Then, different students and things like that studying abroad. So pretty much every week I'll see somebody from the States or, just walking around and you hear it and, you kind of like catch on like, oh, they're speaking English. But from that aspect, I mean, it's not really too much for me because, like I said, I've been in good cities other than the culture shock and trying to embrace the culture and, the ways of life that they have over here is definitely more calm and relaxing more than, the fast pace in America.
How about like the crowds or referees or anything?
Okay,
that one. Soccer, like I feel like over there I've heard stories about,
for sure. Okay, in that aspect, for sure, it's night and day. So like they have 2 teams in Serbia that are the biggest teams, Partizan and Red Star. We pull up to the gym, you pretty much got basically SWAT team is out there waiting for you. Riot gear, AK-47s, batons, and everything with the mask and all that stuff, just pretty much basically for crowd control. So just imagine a college section 10 times modified with a bunch of 20 to 40-year-old grown men. You've been drinking beers all day. So it's definitely a different experience as far as that, like with the fans and how they react and literally singing and chanting and screaming all game long. But I love that aspect of it.
Got some basketball hooligans over there.
No, for sure.
So another little wrinkle in your professional basketball career has been your involvement with Carmen's Crew. Have you been on every edition of Carmen's Crew? Like you were on the one that got the bag in 2019, right? Yeah,
I have. I was with 4 years. Dang, I didn't realize it. Yeah, it's been 4 years. So we're 1 out of 4. Not too bad. I think we messed up the first year. We kind of let that one slip away. I think that would have been our biggest one that we would probably, this one last year, we probably regret the most.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously you guys won 1 year. That's all well and good, but I'm an Illinois guy. So when I saw House of Pain pairing up with Carmen's Crew, like those are some of my old neighbors and guys like that from college. And, I just had to give it to you a little bit, falling in the first round to the House of Pain. Yeah. What happened? What happened there?
And it's acceptable. It's a part of the game, man. When you go out there and you play, you got to show it on the court. A lot of things, doesn't work out like you want it. It looks good on paper, but that's the beauty of sports. And that's the beauty of a tournament. I think that's why the TBT is so great. If you don't come to play, just like the NCAA tournament, one game slip up and it's over for you.
I mean, you guys were kind of pioneers with the TBT, the basketball tournament, being really the first, live basketball that we saw post or during the COVID
era. I think it was like 3 or 4 months without live basketball. They were the first ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did a good job of basically creating the bubble, and literally the NBA followed suit after that.
So do you think Carmen's Crew is going to be back? I assume it'll be back in some form. Will Aaron Kraft be back? Like, what's it going to look like going forward after you got bounced this year?
For sure, we can't go out like that. So I'll say it right now for sure. I'm coming back. So we'll see about everything else. Kraft is about to be a doctor. It's going to be an amazing one. So we'll see what's going on with his studies and how things are going on, with COVID, I guess, by the time this comes back around next year. And I think we'll be able to force him to play, a couple weekends. He'll be able to be free. So he's a big part of everything that we do. So for sure, we're working and talking to guys and see, what type of team we can build again for next year.
Yeah, seeing all those guys back together does bring back so many memories, I'm sure, for Ohio State fans, even for me, somebody who kind of watched those teams growing up. And, talking to you now brings back memories of those squads because you were kind of a bridge between 2 eras of Buckeye basketball under Thad Matta. Your freshman year, you guys were unbelievable. You were part of that recruiting class with Greg Oden and Mike Conley. And then you had the injury and got a 5th year. And then your senior year, you had another unbelievable year with some really nice years in between your freshman and senior year. So how do you kind of rank those 2 years that bracketed your college experience, knowing you had a bigger role maybe on that senior year team, but your freshman year team had all that hype coming in?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's so many different dynamics to each team. And then, like you just said, me getting hurt and getting a 5th year, that never would have happened, if I didn't get hurt. So it's like, gift and a curse with everything. So it's tough to rank them, but I for sure would have to say my freshman year because we made it all the way to the finals. I think my senior year, I'm still a little mad about it. I think I watched the Kentucky game once. And we kind of got the bad straw. Even though we got the number 1 seed, we still probably had the hardest route to get to the finals. But, I mean, that's like I said, it's the beauty of the tournament. We played off a little bit one game, and, yeah, that's what happens. Brandon Knight hit a big shot and got us up out of there.
So I know, the hype with all that, all ththose guys on your freshman recruiting class was real, but you guys did start 24-0, I believe, your senior year. So what did the hype reach a higher level during your senior year just because you guys, went way deeper into the season going undefeated, or was it still pretty much your freshman year, the year you remember for kind of the noise and the hype surrounding you guys?
I would say the hype my freshman year was still more just because of Greg, I would say. You got the number 1 recruit in the country. You got the whole Fab 5 thing going on. And literally it was the year before Terrence Dowse, JJ, Ivan Harris, those guys basically, were on the building block of bringing Ohio State basketball back, to the top. And then to follow up with the recruiting class that we had and literally make it all the way to the championship as freshmen, that's something that they haven't seen since the Fab 5. So for us to be able to accomplish that and do that, the hype was crazy. Like literally everywhere we went, it was a show, and it was a show for Greg, basically. So as we kept going and growing and growing, and everybody was anticipating him coming back from the injury and things like that, it was like a movie, basically, for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the football team at Ohio State probably is used to that treatment. It's crazy to me as a basketball guy myself, like looking back at Ohio State's history, because they've been so good. They have such a good and historic basketball program. And then for that year, like you said, it was like a movie. So do you have any sort of Last Dance style stories of reporters or fans chasing you down, students coming up to you guys on campus?
That was weekly. Walking to class.
Getting to Greg, were you a bodyguard? What happened?
For sure. I mean, that was weekly. Coming to class, walking to class, people popping into class, like, oh yeah, that's him. We waiting for him outside, things like that. For sure. I think our strength and conditioning coach, Dave Richardson, literally, he was like the bodyguard for us, basically, on the road. Big Ten championship going through in Chicago and things like that. Walking to the hotel, like you said, it felt like a movie. You get off the bus, everybody's just swarming you, basically. So just to see it all happen in like slow motion, right in front of your eyes, was kind of crazy for sure.
And the way that season ended, not to bring up bad memories, get too deep into it, but it's kind of wild to see how everything has turned out. You got Mike Conley still in the league. Billy Donovan was just named head coach of the Bulls. Joakim Noah still in the league. Al Horford.
Sure.
What's it like to just kind of see the basketball stories of everyone play out, now almost, I guess, 15 years later almost?
It's crazy. You talk about that. So they had Torian Green was their point guard. I ended up being teammates with him for 2 years over here in France. And we talked about the game and, things like that, and how, they were so hyped to play us because they all the talk, and they had just won a championship. They had things to prove. So it's kind of nice to see it from his point of view and, how they experienced it and took on the challenge and things like that. So for sure, literally for guys to still be playing, like you said, almost 15 years later, it shows how much talent was literally on the court. And we had, I think 4 guys on the team right there who played in the NBA just for ourselves. And then they had maybe 5 or 6. And then we still have pros. Ron Lewis still over here playing, I think, in maybe his 14th year of playing basketball. So for sure, that just shows literally how good guys were.
And you guys are no slouches, in the in-between years either. You guys had some good teams. How would you say the injury maybe altered the trajectory of your career, your life? Like we talked about allowing you to stay for another year, but how did it, affect your outlook on basketball during the moment and then going forward reflecting on it?
Well, actually, I got injured twice when I was playing. Right before it would have been my 5th year. I broke my foot again, the same foot in the summertime in May, right before my birthday. So I think I took that one a little harder than the first one. I try to be optimistic in everything that I do. Literally taking things in stride. I'm a glass half full type of guy. So the first time I just tried to use it to get stronger, watch a lot of video, get better. And I think it showed, my improvement. Literally coming from my sophomore year to my junior year, my numbers increased, crazy. So literally I felt my senior year was about to be the same thing because my guy ET had just left to go to the NBA, and we were really looking for a point guard basically. So I was kind of going to fill that role. So I broke my foot, and it kind of went to the side basically. And my guy William Buford, he ended up being like, if you go back and look at my senior year, he would start at the point guard for like the first war, we call it, the first 4 or 5 minutes, and he hated it. And then Kraft would come in the game and basically finish it out. So in my mind, in my head, and things, things could have went different maybe if I would have got the opportunity to play in that role. But like I said, I'm a glass full type of guy, so I take everything in stride.
So reflecting back then on your entire career at Ohio State, what are some of the memories that, when people ask you to tell the old war stories, like you said, you immediately go to, you have plenty to choose from, but what jumps out at you, maybe at the top of your list?
Oh my goodness. It's so many. I would say getting revenge on Florida my senior year, going down there and smacking them on their home court. Because, like you said, my freshman year, we lost to them actually twice that year. If you remember, it was like a Christmas massacre, they call it, right before Christmas holiday break. We lost by like 20. So to see the flip side of it, go down there and win was something that was great for me. But, for me, it's just the people, man, literally the guys, the family, the bond, the brotherhood of everyone. And as you can see it now, even with the TBT, we're all really like brothers. We all consider each other family, and this is, 10, 15 years later. So just that aspect of it, and just, the in and out day-to-day things, being in the locker room with the guys, being in the dorms. We moved out of the dorms, and we all live next to each other, literally house to house to house, right next to each other. So it's like those memories will last, a lifetime. We could probably make a documentary out of it if we wanted to.
I was going to say, what would have been like if we would have sent the
oh man
cameras into your little neighborhood
block? If this day and age was when we played, because literally when we played, Twitter was just starting, Instagram just started, YouTube, as my guy Mark Titus was probably, one of the pioneers to start on the YouTube stuff. Literally, if we had that exposure then, it would be a different story for a lot of guys, probably.
The Snapchat stories would have been live and probably getting people.
Oh my goodness, we would have got a lot of calls from Gene and see what's going on over there in the rooms.
I'm glad you mentioned Mark Titus. He's now our colleague in the Fox family here, doing his thing with the podcast, Titus and Tate.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure that was a lot of fun. But I gotta ask, just so we can have some fun with Mark. What's one thing? If you had to pick, give him something, what's one thing he could do better than you on a basketball court if it came down to it?
Oh, one thing that Mark can do better than me. Scout team player of the year. I give him that one. He did it. He did his thing a couple practices. I will say that. Mark had some game. He would definitely have some flashes where he would show, I can play a little bit for sure. So it's just not for fun out here for me.
Just out of curiosity, because I read his book, like, were you guys 100% supportive of him taking on that kind of side hustle and role, or did it ever get on your nerves?
I mean, for some people, for me, I'm like, go for it, for sure. Whatever floats your boat, basically. For him, I think it was just his personality starting to show and come out. And I think, I mean, that's what you need for people, for sure, for me. Some others, the villain maybe, might have some irritations with it. But I think, as time went on, guys started to understand and were okay with everything, for sure.
Yeah, just talking about these guys, it's taking me back to reading that book in high school or college or whatever. It was fun kind of getting the inside look, pulling back the curtain.
So imagine that, but
right.
on video. That's what it would have been if we would have had that technology then. So for sure.
We'll never know. But no, you guys were a fun group. And I guess one more fun kind of lighthearted question. My coworker actually had ran this by me when I told him I was interviewing you. He wanted to know if you've ever seen Thad Matta not chewing gum, because it seems like the guy's always got some gum in his mouth.
I think it rubbed off on me because I always have gum where I go now, literally in my pocket, in my car, in my bag. I always have a pack of gum. But for him, he got a deal off of dropping gum on the ground, picking it up and chewing it. He got a gum deal. I think it was Wrigley. So you go into his office, he literally has 20 packs of gum, 3 different kinds of gum in his office just because of that. So you gotta look at it on the good side, like I said.
The legacy lives on. He's got his whole gum tree now, with his
for sure.
Carrying that torch. All right, Dave, I ran this by you before we chatted because I knew it was going to be a tough question. Didn't want to put you on the spot too much, but I want you to name, if you could. We're going to run through the lineup 1 through 5, and we'll give you a 6 man as well. The ultimate starting 5 from your playing days, the David Lighty era at Ohio State. So any of your teammates are eligible. I'm going to run through for the folks real quick, just the guys that are eligible.
That one is tough.
Yeah, it's guys like Evan Turner, like you mentioned, Mike Conley, Greg Oden, Daquan Cook. That was your recruiting class right there. Some of those guys, John Diebler, Kraft, Sullinger, Deshaun Thomas, William Buford, so many guys. So I'm going to start us at the 1. Who's bringing the ball up in your ultimate starting 5?
I think that was probably one of the hardest decisions. For me, it's either Kraft or Conley. It's one of the two I got to go with. So I'm going to go Mike, just because he can do the defense as well. I mean, probably not as good as Kraft, but he's in the passing lanes, can get steals and things like that. So I think he set the freshman record for most steals at Ohio State. So I would go Mike at the 1. At the 2, I would go that's a tough one as well. It's so much.
You're gonna make some enemies here on the podcast.
For sure today. It's okay. They all understand. Tell them I'm leaving myself off, so they know that one. I was torn between Ron Lewis and William Buford, but I would go with Buford just because of the longevity. What he did in his career, literally from day one until his senior year, is something that's basically unmatched. He's top 5 in Ohio State scoring of all time. So you can't turn that down. So I got William at the 2. At the 3, I'm going to go ET just because he'll be another combo guard, pretty much 1 through 4 type of guy, can handle the ball too. Then I'm going to go. The 4 was tough. These next 2. I went big, traditional Big Ten basketball. I put Jared at the 4, and then Greg at the 5. Of course, I mean that's tough to turn down. And we got other good guys for sure, like Dallas, who's literally top 3 in block shots. Then I had Costa. I thought about a stretch 5-man. So, but I went with Greg, and then my 6th man, I got Diebler coming off the bench shooting everything. So stretch the floor.
All right. Yeah. Like you said, there's no wrong answers there. Just running through it. It's crazy how great Ohio State was. And, I know a lot of players and people I've talked to from Ohio State that were affiliated with the program and still follow to this day. We're big Thad Matta guys. And for a lot of them, it was tough to see him go. So I want to get your perspective on how that played out, and also just your thoughts on the current state of the program under Coach Holtman, because it seems like he's kept it rolling in his first few years there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, everyone was sad to see him go, but I mean, as I got older and, being 10 years in the business now, I understand that side of things, the business side of it. Probably a little young, naive kid, back in college, that's something that we probably really never paid attention to. But for sure, I think, as time goes on, everyone, starts to realize, it's not just about X's and O's all the time. So I think it was just a mutual agreement, for the school and for coach. It was just time. But for sure, he left his mark, with no question. The things that he did in his time there is basically historic. So for us, I think with Coach Holtman, it was big for him to embrace us and literally, take us on as his own and, allow us to be a part of everything still. So I think that's been the best part of, him and his staff coming in. And like you said, we feel like we left a legacy. The guys who were there, the guys even before me, we all feel like we left a legacy there, and we kind of set a standard for Ohio State basketball. And I think Coach Holtman has been doing a great job so far for sure. And, upholding that and trying to raise the bar.
So with you spending a lot of time overseas and those seasons overlapping, how do you follow the Buckeyes? Do you get a chance to watch many games, or is it waking up in the morning, checking the score type deal?
I don't sleep too much over here. I probably don't go to sleep till like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning because of that. I'm a basketball junkie, I would say, and I'm a night owl anyway. And even back home, I'm the same way. So I catch the games probably maybe until halftime, but normally like weekend games, afternoon games are perfect for me. I get done over here around 9 o'clock. They got a 3 o'clock game on CBS. I chill out, watch it, relax. And other than that, like you said, just the highlights and, just talking to guys, knowing the coaching staff. Jake Diegler, John's brother, he's been around us, since John was there. So basically all of that combined in one.
And, you mentioned you're a basketball junkie. We got to talk some NBA, but also since you're a Cleveland guy, I had to ask if you're a Cavs fan. Are you a Cavs guy?
Oh, for sure. To the heart, always. Cavs, Browns, Indians.
Right.
I've been lucky to have those great teams growing up.
So I was going to ask, with the 54-year drought ending in 2016, it's no question that was all worth it, right? Like for even the Cavs to be so trash the last few years. No question, right?
I wanted to shed a tear. I felt like I won a championship. Like literally, I felt like I won a championship. And just to see the city come out and celebrate it like we did, it was amazing for me. Like you said, the drought doesn't matter when you get all of that. Like literally, you build all that up, and against the team that they did it against, come on now, that's going to be another documentary like MJ's for sure.
I'm a Cubs fan, so I understand the drought.
Oh, that one hurt that year too. Right?
I apologize. Your Indians.
That was supposed to be our year, man. It was supposed to be our year.
I'm telling you, I had just moved to Chicago, started my job, and the Cubs went down 3-1, much like your Cavs did.
For sure, yeah,
and
exactly.
A Cleveland fan in the street, yelling in our faces saying, we got Title Town, 2 titles in 1 year. He jumped the gun. It was a 3-1. He should have known about the 3-1 lead that anything can happen.
For sure. Crazy part about that, it was my second stint in Italy. I'm up watching the game. Bottom of the ninth, they hit the home run. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm screaming, so excited, so hyped because I thought it was over for sure. We hit the home run. I come to practice the next day. They're like, Lighty, what was going on? Are you okay? What was all that? So, yeah, for sure. That one hurt. But for the Cavs to win it and the Indians to lose, it's okay. We can take that drop off. It's all right. It happens.
It's a good trade-off to keep everyone happy on the podcast. I do have to ask as well, because one of my former roommates is a Browns fan.
That one is a tough one.
Yeah. How are you feeling about your Browns? Because all the hype was real going into last year. It seemed like with Baker and Odell that things were cooking, and now it's fizzling a little bit. So what are your thoughts on the Browns, and can they get out of this kind of malaise that they're in?
See, but that's the thing. As a Browns fan, it's hype. That's all it is. You can't get too excited. Come on now. We've been doing this since '99. So, like, for me to get excited, I should be beating myself up. So I already understand, how it's going to be. We might start off good, or this game looks good, or this might be the turnaround game. And it never quite gets there. So for me, like I said, I'm a glass half full type of guy. I just take it in stride. We get a win, I'm excited. We get a lose, it's like, we've been losing. So it's okay. We got to look at the positive. But hopefully this year we can, use the weapons that we have, because that's the most frustrating thing, I would say. It's so many good pieces that the Browns have that, you just think it has to click sometimes, for sure.
I'm pretty sure they got expanded playoffs this year as well. So maybe you guys, can sneak in wild card or something like that.
We'll see. You better be a Bears fan.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Bears fan. So I can kind of relate to like the extended misery, even though we do have some flashpoints in our history. It's a lot of losing to the Packers.
That's a tough one with Mitch, man. That's a Cleveland guy.
That's true. Menor man, right?
Yeah. So he's in y'all's hands for now. We'll see how it goes.
2-0. Well, we're just gonna keep saying 2-0 and seeing how it plays out. Before we let you go, I can't let you off the hook without predicting NBA Finals champ. I assume you've been watching a lot of the bubble. I really like the quality of basketball in the bubble. I think I've watched more of these playoffs than I've watched of the NBA in years. I don't know why that is, but all the games are really entertaining from my perspective. So have you enjoyed watching, this bubble format, and who do you think is going to take home that Larry O.B. in a few weeks here?
For sure. The bubble's been great, from, like you said, playing in the TBT and having a bubble to kind of like bringing back old AAU memories. That's basically what it is. It's the biggest AAU tournament of all time, at the highest level. So to have that with the best players in the world, like you said, it draws you, it gets you, it makes you, connect to it. It's something new, something that we haven't seen. And like you said, guys have been playing out of their minds, basically. And I think that is a tribute to the bubble for sure. Guys like Tyler Hero on the road in Game 7 or something like that. Is it going to be the same? Is he going to do this or that? But for me, I just like the way Miami's playing as a team. They have so many pieces that you can't key on one. And I think with Jimmy Butler, I think he's my type of guy. He's my type of person, my type of player. Like, he leads by example. He's out there. You got your max player out there diving on the floor, taking charges, doing all the dirty work. Everyone else is going to follow for sure. And for them to do what they've been doing, and, no one basically probably expected it so far, has been great. So we'll see, how they finish off the series with Boston. But I'm going to go Miami versus the Lakers. But then I got Lakers 4-2 in the finals. But you can't put out Denver, man. It's crazy how they're playing. I think Jokic and Murray have, lifted themselves into, the top tier players of the Western Conference and the NBA for sure.
Yeah, I love that answer, because I'm kind of an adopted Miami Heat fan at this point, because the Bulls being so poor, recent history, and the Heat playing kind of a style that reminds me of the Bulls, to be honest, like when under the Thibodeau regime.
Yeah, for sure. Hard nose,
a lot of ball
like
movement.
Jimmy Butler.
My guy Jimmy, yeah, I like seeing Jimmy have a resurgence. We got some Illinois guys on the team with Myers Leonard and Kendrick Nunn, who was my neighbor back in the day. So it's fun to kind of hop on that bandwagon. I hope we do see him in the finals. But you're right, the bubble does kind of give AAU vibes, and for me, AAU memories means like getting switched on to Jahlil Okafor in the post. So at 5'10", you can imagine how that ended. So it's not all.
What you gonna do about it?
Hey. But David, I appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun chatting with you. A lot of fun catching up, and hope to see you in the TBT again for that House of Pain rematch. It's always fun. For sure.
It'll be a different turnout this time, for sure. They gonna set that up. We're gonna see what happens. They'll be in our region for sure.
Wouldn't be surprised also to see you, on this side of the mic at some point. I know, we always love getting former players in the mix. So hopefully, when you're done, you can take someone's job. How about that?
Sure. We'll see, man. We'll see. See how long my legs hold up, man. I'm 10 years in now. Maybe another 3-4 years. We'll see how it turns out. But for sure, keep that in my back pocket. See how it turns out.
All right. Well, I appreciate it once again, and we will be following your journey the rest of the way.
Definitely. Appreciate you having me, man.
All right. Thanks once again to David Lighty for jumping on with me. Really appreciate his time. Really fun discussion with him. Those Ohio State teams were so much fun and so good back in the late aughts and early 2010s. And the program's always been on solid ground, but those teams were elite. And appreciate him pulling back the curtain even more, kind of in the, like we talked about in the way Mark Titus did with his book and his blog, and a lot of those outside personalities on those teams, and a really likable head coach. Just a fun group to reminisce on, and cool that David and so many other of his teammates from that era are still playing. So appreciate him. Best of luck to him. Now we'll toss it over to BTN researcher Harold Shelton. Harold joins the show regularly during football and college basketball season, and now that it is back, we are welcoming back in with open arms to discuss the return of college football. First off, with the updated schedule coming out this past weekend, and we generally get Harold on to break down the stats, kind of explain what's going on, and he's very good at articulating the week in, week out, and game in, game out when it comes to basketball, particulars of college sports. So always love having him on, and we'll do that on a regular basis once again now that the games are on the horizon. So we'll toss it over to Harold Shelton and get back in the groove with sports returning. All right, I'm very pleased to welcome back to Take 10 Podcast a very special and regular guest, Harold Shelton, BTN researcher for our stats segment. And Harold, it's been a while since we've had the privilege of talking Big Ten football and basketball. Going to have you back on as often as you want, in the coming weeks and months, because sports are pretty much back, fingers crossed, and wanted to obviously get you back on, and it's good to see you and hear your voice again.
Good to see you too, man. Glad to be back. Definitely was real touch and go there for a while in terms of if we were going to have football or not. I mean, I guess the plan was to always do it, but whether it was going to be a January start, a Thanksgiving start, there were so many different options out there. But now we got something that's set in stone, and, about a month from today or a month from this week, we'll be kicking off.
Yeah, and for those who don't tune in regularly to the show, Harold and I try and chat weekly during football and basketball season, because Harold is a stats guru and knows how to apply those numbers to conversation, and much better at it than I am. So we will be doing this going forward, hopefully, as long as the sports stick around. And it seems like we have a pretty solid plan in place for football, and basketball's got some good vibes too. And for a while, like you touched on, it was not the case. Football was back, and then it was gone, and then thankfully it's back again starting October 23rd, 24th. And I just want to get your thoughts overall on the format and what we're staring at here with the schedule, and how feasible you think it's going to be with what we've already seen in college football and some of the delays. The 8 games in 8 weeks is going to be tight parameters for the conference. What do you just think about the plan and how this fall is going to play out, and for observers, kind of be a welcome distraction?
Well, hopefully they can get this season in safely. I mean, as we've seen, across the country, there have been several issues with teams that have had to postpone games already. I saw Houston already had 4 opponents postponed on them. And we're still, late in September. Notre Dame, who was lauded for doing such a great job and, keeping, positive test results down, they had to postpone their game away for us. So I just think even though we have football back, I wanted to be safe, and hopefully we can get through the season. The fact that there's no bye weeks at all, it's just, 9 straight weeks of football. They didn't really give a lot of wiggle room there. And so I think because it's a late start, you kind of had to do that, especially if you're still trying to make the playoffs. So I get why they did it. It's a really, really tight window to try to get a lot of stuff in. And you just hope that we don't have any postponements, because if there are, I don't know how those get made up.
For as much flack as the Big Ten got for like boomeranging on the decision, I think what's going to work in their advantage and favor here when we go through the schedule is the stringent planning and requirements, because it seems like we kind of touched on it, it's the Wild West with a lot of other programs in college football. Some places have 10,000 fans in the stands and student sections packed together, and some places, you know, are, like he said, having to cancel games weeks in advance and getting games canceled on them and are scrambling to schedule. The Big Ten, like we said, is keeping it in-house. They've already said no fans across the board. Like, everything seems kind of tight now and, you know, kind of signed, sealed, and delivered. So hopefully that works in their favor. I think it will. I think, you know, that the fact that I'm going to say it's a fact, they're taking it more seriously than other conferences, is going to help them. And like you said, hopefully don't have any postponements, because the bumpers in the lane here are very tight. So H, now that we have the schedule, we saw in the Big Noon Kickoff this past weekend, it get dropped. What were your impressions? You know, maybe some winners and losers of the schedule release. What are your overall thoughts on the 8-game schedule?
Well, first of all, as a Michigan State alum, I am happy that it is only an 8-game schedule, the way that Miami and BYU have looked in the preseason. Those were two non-conference opponents that they were going to have that they no longer have to play, which is a good thing in the transition year with the new head coach. That being said, with the schedule release, I feel like Ohio State was the clear winner. The fact that they don't play Wisconsin, they don't play Minnesota. They had a game with Iowa from the August release that's no longer on the schedule. So their crossover opponents are Nebraska and Illinois. They do have a game at Penn State, but guess what? No whiteout. So with no fans in the stands, that isn't nearly as an imposing venue. Obviously still tough to play, but you're not playing that night in front of 105,000 screaming fans. You know, you can hear some calls a little better coming in from the sideline and from the huddle. So I think that just might be a talent wins out situation. So for me, I think Ohio State was the clear winner there. I thought Purdue, if they're trying to, you know, kind of bounce back from the down year they had last year, losing Ohio State and Michigan from the schedule, I think certainly helps out there. And staying in the West, I think Nebraska, it's very interesting that their two crossover opponents are Ohio State and Penn State, and they lost Michigan State and Rutgers, who, you know, two of the bottom three, so to speak, in the Big Ten East, and the fact that they open up with Ohio State and Wisconsin to start the season. It's interesting to me how that schedule played out. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know a lot of people out there kind of thought that, you know, the Big Ten did this on purpose because Nebraska had a lot to say throughout the whole process. But I do think it's interesting to see the schedule play out the way it played.
I just got to say, too, like, stepping back from the actual games themselves, I love, as a consumer, the 8-game schedule as far as keeping, you know, getting the 56-point blowouts out of the way with the non-conference games. Like, that's been my biggest thing growing up watching college football, is like, I just can't get into the season too deeply until conference play starts, because so many of those games are just throwaway games. I understand why those games happen. You know, it props up a lot of smaller programs. TV revenue comes in. I don't expect that to change, but just like in a vacuum, I'm going to very much enjoy having every game have stakes this year, every week. So that'll be fun. H, you know, you mentioned Ohio State coming out pretty well, the schedule release. I think Wisconsin, Minnesota as well, you know, on the west side, pretty favorable. We'll start, I guess, on the east when we kind of look at big picture division favorites. Ever since I've been at BTN, I guess there was my first year, Penn State and Wisconsin played in the Big Ten championship game. I didn't go to that one. So every Big Ten championship game I've been to, it's been Ohio State and Wisconsin. Is there any reason to believe that it'll be different this year?
I I'd be really surprised if Ohio State's not there again, especially considering that they had a couple of guys who were going to opt back in Wyatt Davis and Sean Wade. And so I think, when you solidify your secondary, you solidify the offensive line, you get a Heisman Trophy favorite coming back at quarterback, and just, the ridiculous talent that they have. I'd be really, really surprised if Ohio State wasn't playing in that title game on the 19th. I think Wisconsin is probably still the favorite. I'll be very curious to see if Minnesota can challenge them. I think a lot will depend on Rashad Bateman and if he can wind up getting some kind of waiver, because I know he opted out, wants to opt back in, but signed with an agent, based off of previous data saying that the season wasn't going to start until 2021. So if there's a way where he can get that waiver and you get him back with Tanner Morgan and Mohamed Ibrahim, I think Minnesota could be a real threat in the West.
Yeah, our colleague Brent Urena's big on the Minnesota hype train this year, and I'm giving him all kinds of crap for it.
We were on it last year, though. Both of us were on it last year.
And I don't give him crap for it because I don't believe it. I do think Minnesota is going to be good and going to challenge for the crown. I just love, giving him a hard time for his darlings every year. So I guess what's the better chance of happening, H? The Big Ten championship game not being Ohio State versus Wisconsin, or us getting to attend in person?
Oof. I'll say us attending in person is probably 0 or very close to it. So I'll probably go Ohio State, Wisconsin as a better chance of happening by default.
Agreed. I'm still holding out like some slim hope, just because who knows? Maybe they play maybe that's the Champions Week set up where they have like 4 games that weekend in Indy or wherever, Detroit, wherever they go. And then somehow, maybe the vaccine has been pushed through.
Man, I love that weekend every year, so I hope we can.
I know.
And I hope it's safe to go. I'm not counting on that.
I would understand if we're not able to. But speaking of that, though, that's something that I left out in my original question. What do you think about the Champions Week format? I think it's kind of universally been well received. I agree with the fact that, or the notion that it's pretty cool, and it's a 9th game in and gets a game on a lot of program schedules that you wouldn't otherwise get. So give me your thoughts on this concept, and you think it has any staying power?
I like it. I like it a lot, actually, because there's so many times where we talk about how one division is stronger than the other, and there's so much imbalance. And it's not just in the Big Ten. You hear it in the SEC. You hear it in the ACC. And so it would be nice to kind of have the 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, and you can kind of stack up and see what division is actually better or what division is deeper. And I think the other cool thing about it is you might get some rematches, which never happens in the regular season unless they meet in the title game. And that's been pretty rare so far. So, let's say Ohio State and Wisconsin meet in the title game and you get Michigan, Minnesota part 2. I mean, they open the season with each other. And what if they end the season with each other? I think that could be pretty cool.
In a sport where the schedules are determined 8 to 10 years in advance, I think not knowing you're going to play until the week before is a fantastic concept. And I would love to see them continue it beyond a one-off year if possible. How about
the bucket back-to-back weeks? That's something that could happen.
For real. I wonder if they'll do trophies for the Champions Week. That'd be pretty sweet too.
Need to get.
You only get it for 1 week. Some schools might only get it for 1 week.
That's a good point. We got to get the commission on the phone and see what's going on with that.
So one other big implication that I thought was kind of overplayed when I heard some blowback to an 8-0 Big Ten team or 7-1 team not deserving of a playoff spot if SEC plays a full schedule or other conferences play 10 or 11 game schedules. I guess they'd be 9-0 or 8-1. But what are your thoughts on any CFP implications? I guess the biggest, flashing caution sign would be the cancellation of games, postponements. But how do you think this factors into the CFP discussion?
I think because the Big Ten is a brand name, and I think that they had 6 preseason top 25 teams in the AP poll, people view the league as a strong league to begin with. And so I think, especially in the case of an Ohio State or Penn State, Wisconsin or Michigan, Minnesota, teams that have a chance to make the playoff, there are a lot of ranked opponents on those schedules. So even though you don't have the key, or you don't have non-conference games, or you don't have that one, game to look at, like, oh, well, they beat Oregon or they beat, whoever in non-conference, you still have a really strong conference slate to judge on. And, normally when I look at those resumes as we get closer and closer to, November and December with those schedule releases, with the rankings releases that come out, when you look, the teams usually only have 3 or 4 quality wins as it is anyway, and most of them are in conference. So I don't think that should change much as long as the games get played.
For a sport that's so subjective too, like it's not like the CFP committee has all these strict parameters.
Right. They look at eye test a lot, probably more than they should. And so I don't see why that would change.
Not too worried about it. All right, H, before we move on to basketball, let's talk about briefly, because I do want to devote maybe a whole episode down the road to some player previews, but who are you keeping an eye on this year as far as, maybe a breakout big season, big time returnees, and then also got to keep in mind, you touched on Bateman, guys like that who are still kind of in limbo with the appeals process. And I do hope they are able to figure something out, because it wouldn't really be fair, like you said, if they are making that decision based on information that turned out to change. I think in this age of player empowerment, I hope they get something figured out. But who you got your eyes on, big picture, as we are here a month to the day from kickoff?
I'm kind of, piggybacking off of Bateman. James Franklin repeatedly said that the door is still open for Micah Parsons if he wants to come back. Rondell Moore is a guy who also opted out. I don't think he hired an agent, though, so it's just up to him if he wants to come back or not. Still haven't heard as of yet when it comes to that. I think the Michigan quarterback situation is really interesting now. It looks like Joe Milton's going to be the guy, with Dylan McCaffrey opting out and transferring. That looked like that was going to be a race for a while, and now you get a very athletic quarterback at that spot. Everybody kind of thought when Shea Patterson came in that he would be the answer at the quarterback position, and he would be the reason why they can get to Indianapolis and finally beat Ohio State. And now, the pressure's on a young Joe Milton, but he definitely looks the part. He's really athletic. And I'll just be curious to see, if he's the answer, if he's the guy that can finally get them over the hump. Chances
are Dylan McCaffrey transfers to Illinois now, right? Like that's
man, that seems to be the pattern, right?
Exactly. So, that'll be interesting to see where he lands if he goes in conference, actually. But, Joe Milton in Michigan going to be very intriguing. Every single one of Ohio State's receivers is going to be it's going to be an electric receiving core for sure. So definitely have my eyes on that group, because I'm sure I'll be tweeting out a lot of their highlights this year. I'm interested to see, too, how Adrian Martinez bounces back in Nebraska. Obviously, kind of a sophomore slump for him. Can he stay healthy? Can he, kind of rise to some of these challenges on his schedule, especially since, he had kind of Heisman hype going into last year definitely from Nebraska fans, but from some national pundits as well. So very curious to see how he deals with that situation, especially now that Spielman's gone.
Yeah, that, and I think the QB situation at Northwestern is interesting as well. Mm-hmm. The Cats kind of had a lot of hype going into last year. Preseason top 25 or right outside of it. The Hunter Johnson situation didn't quite work out with injuries and, personal issues going on. But now you get Peyton Ramsey there from Indiana. And TJ Green is back after getting hurt in the opener. And so I'd be curious to see if Ramsey winds up winning that job. And, this is a perfect kind of schedule and layout for them, because they never had a home field advantage to begin with. and they usually just win a bunch of close games, phone booth type games. So I wouldn't be shocked if – I'm not saying they'll win a division, but I wouldn't be shocked if they, jumped up and bit a couple of those top 25 teams.
Peyton Ramsey's old school too. I'm curious to see if Penix can stay healthy. He's electric.
Oh, yeah.
And Indiana, is still kind of on the up and up. So curious, a lot of places, and my alma mater, Illinois, too. I mentioned them. They had an exciting resurgence in the middle of last year, tailed off toward the end, and there's some hype because they really do have a talented roster. Now we'll see if they can put it together and overcome some deficiencies on defense, because it's an intriguing roster there, and I think it's gonna be closer in the West with a lot of teams jumbled than people think. I saw some of the lines come out for over/under win totals, and I saw some that were too high, and I saw some that were too low. I think it's gonna be way more of a jumbled mess in the middle. A lot of 4-4s in the Western Division. But
yeah, totally agree with that.
H, let's before we wrap it up here on a Thursday late morning, let's talk some hoops, because I'm very excited for the return of basketball season. It's closer than we think, just with, it always seems so far away when football first starts, but now that the time frames are almost overlapping, it's going to get real busy and real interesting here very soon. So basketball has been kind of this security blanket for me personally, because it's always seemed like the powers that be with basketball have been on point so far. You haven't heard too many ominous things about cancellations. I think basketball lends itself to an easier launch just with the size of the rosters and the proven tactics that have already worked with the basketball tournament, kind of setting being the first guinea pig out there in July. NBA bubble's been magnificent. And I don't even think with basketball it takes a sealed bubble to the lengths that the NBA has gone. They've done a great job, but we've seen it can work. I think if you maybe go somewhere for a weekend, like we're seeing with the preseason tournaments, trying to get their ducks in a row. So really, really excited for the return of college basketball, really optimistic. We've seen the date be not leaked, but announced of November 25th as a start date for kind of everybody. Big Ten hasn't announced yet what the schedule is going to be exactly. But what are your thoughts on the return of college hoops? And you think it has as good a chance of working as I do? Or are you as optimistic as me?
No, I am as optimistic as you. I think basketball lends itself to just a much safer environment. Just the numbers. I mean, football teams, you have to worry about, 85 scholarship guys plus all your staff members and whatnot. In basketball, you're talking about 15. And so I feel like it's just much easier to control everything just with fewer numbers. I do think it's interesting that we're still going to get some non-conference games. It's not going to just be a conference-only slate. The fact that Orlando's going to be very, very busy. I know Michigan State's going to be spending a ton of time down there. Champions Classic got moved down there. They are already in the what was formerly called the Old Spice Classic, which is not an Orlando Invitational. So they'll be spending some time down there. I know Rutgers will be down there for the Jimmy V Classic, which is normally in New York. Nebraska will be down there for the Myrtle Beach Invitational. Penn State will be down there. And so there's just going to be a lot of Big Ten teams that'll be in Orlando for a lot of these non-conference games. And I'm glad to see that those tournaments are still happening. Just a brief side note, like imagine you were planning on going to Maui or the Bahamas this year. Like, oh man, I can't wait to go to my Invitational, Battle for Atlantis, and
Indiana, right? Indiana's in Maui. I think Ohio State's in Atlantis.
And instead you're going to Sioux Falls. Or you're not going at all. Because
although like Asheville is pretty cool for the Maui Invitational.
Yeah.
I went this summer. That was like first pandemic trip where we tried to keep it outdoors, and it was a cool spot, but it's no Maui. That's for sure.
Right. Exactly. And so I definitely feel bad for the players who have never been to those type of places. And I'm sure that's probably a recruiting tool. And it's like, well, actually you're going to Asheville or Sioux Falls. And I'm sure, young kids, you can still have fun with it no matter what, but just not quite the same. But just in terms of overall hoops, this is going to be a really, really fun year. Really, really top heavy. A lot of great players coming back. I'm really looking forward to the league.
I think speaking of preseason or non-conference action, ACC Big Ten Challenge sounds like it's still a go as of now too. So
yeah, exactly.
Great news there. Should be some fun, I think, matchups this year that are a little more non-traditional if they line them up like the matchups, at the top would suggest when you got teams like Illinois, Iowa, and, potentially Rutgers getting in that top half of the matchups. Teams that might, face a Duke that wouldn't normal years. Usually we get the Indiana Duke matchup and the North Carolina, Michigan State or Ohio State. Ohio State I know has been playing UNC a lot lately. So should be some intriguing, fun matchups there. But yeah, you mentioned the talent coming back, and it's really exciting from, Iowa and Illinois on down the list. The only guy, that I can really think of that kind of surprised me that didn't come back was Xavier Tillman. And not even that it was a surprise, just like it seemed like it could go either way. So sorry, H. Your Spartans took a little bit of a hit there, but I think they will be okay with a lot of the folks they got coming back.
Yeah, it was seeing Luka Garza come back. It was like, okay, like Iowa could be for real. We'll see if they can guard some people, but they are certainly deep. They might be the deepest team in the conference, and led by everybody's preseason player of the year. So Iowa should be loaded. Getting Io and Kofi to come back for Illinois, that was huge. I thought Io would be gone. I thought Kofi was more 50-50, but getting both of those guys back, Illinois could really make a run for Big Ten title in the Final Four. I know Wisconsin brings everybody back. And people kind of forget that if the Big Ten tournament was actually played, they were the top seed in it. Mm-hmm. And they kind of flew under the radar. I'll be curious to see if they, kind of play the way they did the last couple of months of last season. I think some of it was a friendly schedule, but some of it was them finding their roles and finding a rhythm with Micah Potter, kind of stepping in seamlessly there. Spartans will probably still be pretty good, but I don't think they're the favorite like they've been the last, maybe 2-3 years in the league. Looking to see if Rocket Watts can kind of take that next step. Losing a player like Cassius is really, really tough. And X, did everything for them defensively. So those are two really, really big pieces to fill.
Man, I know Rocket Watts can play. I saw it in person in Champaign. I was at that game, and he looked like the top recruit that he was ranked as, and it's in there. I think consistency, like you said, is going to be what to look for from him. But I want to be careful with this terminology and this language because it's always very sensitive. But if there's any silver lining to everything that's gone on with March Madness being canceled and all of the circumstances that have been uplifted and disrupted, Illinois fans, I think, got the best end of the deal with Kofi and Io coming back. I think Kofi would have come back regardless. I don't think there's any way Io would have come back because I think he would have made an impact in March of 2020 and would have elevated that draft stock enough. So I think this is the only way that he would return, and happy for a lot of people I know who have been waiting for a while for there to be this type of preseason buzz. It's kind of too bad that the fan aspect is removed from it, but I do think it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts some of the Ken Pom style statistics that we've seen in past years and the overall gameplay, game in and game out of some of these Big Ten teams, because I do think some teams will be impacted more than others just by what we saw last year carrying over to this year with a lot of the rosters intact. I think teams like Purdue and Iowa might have some adverse effects just by those home and road splits that we saw last year. I'm not sure that that's going to be the case for teams like Illinois and Rutgers who, play defense and rebound, and that tends to travel. However, we know how intimidating Rutgers was at the rack last year and how that place could play to their advantage. So maybe I don't get too far ahead of myself there. What are your thoughts on the, limited or no fan element of what we're likely looking at this season?
I think it's going to be really interesting. I think if you're a younger team, I think it actually benefits you because we've seen young teams go on the road, play, upperclassmen, packed house, and, they get the deer in headlights look and games get away from them. Now you don't have to worry about that. It's just, cream rises to the top. The more talented team most likely will win. I don't think, you just kind of get rid of some of the intangibles that exist. I mean, you touched on it with Mackey. I mean, Purdue was night and day, away from Mackey and compared to, they beat Michigan State by 30, they beat Virginia by 30, and they go on the road and struggle with a bunch of teams. And so, not having that, that this year, I think it kind of benefits the teams that just really play good defense, rebound, like you said, the stuff that you could play on neutral court, home court, on the road. I think teams that do that will probably find themselves in the best shape to win the league.
Maybe you guys won't lose at Assembly Hall this year because that's been a house of horrors.
Yeah, we've had a lot of issues in Bloomington. So hopefully if we're playing there, that won't be as big of an issue this year.
I will say, kind of last thought here before we wrap up, basketball for me as a viewer has been the easiest sport to adjust to with no fans, just with the overall viewing experience. Baseball is kind of weird. I don't think the MLB has done a great job simulating a no fans environment. I think the NFL has done a pretty good job just with their in the broadcast with their tight shots and the crowd level noise and all that. Basketball, I don't know if I'm just taking too much from the NBA here because I don't think NBA crowds are that have that much allure anyway. It's kind of all, a lot of the non-OKC Utah Jazz type arenas are kind of corporate to me. So maybe I'm taking too much from the NBA here because the bubble has been extremely entertaining and watchable for me, more so than most playoff years. College basketball I do really, really love because of the student sections, fan engagement, the environment. But I still think basketball is going to be the easiest sport to watch with no fans. Just wanted to get your take on that.
No, I'm 100% in agreement with that. I think there are some times where you look at a conference tournament early, that first day or that first morning of the second day, and the crowd is really sparse and it's just the team's getting after it. And I think we're just going to see that for, the whole season. So I'm already kind of used to that to begin with. It's just going to be on a much larger scale, obviously. But you're right. It's, especially for me as a Michigan State guy, having the is-zone, psych people out with the fake shot clock, whether it counting it down too early or having it go opposite and have them still have the ball as the clock runs out. Like those kind of things I'll miss. Obviously the chants, all the stuff that is great in college sports in general, like won't be there. And that will definitely feel different. But I just think basketball in general, guys just go out and play and, you miss some intangible stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just ball.
Yeah, and it's hard to sometimes envision it right now, but those scenes will come back. It's temporary, and for now, I don't know about you, but I'm just thrilled to have sports seemingly coming back pretty soon here. So
absolutely,
I think we can leave it there and keep the good vibes rolling into our next discussion.
Sounds good to me.
All right, H. Thanks for jumping on as always. Good to have you back in the fold here, and talk soon.
Sounds good, man. Weekly, back at it.
Let's do it. All right. Thanks one more time to H and David Lighty for joining the show. Going to try and keep the podcast coming at a regular cadence as we get into football season and basketball. Things are stacking up for sure, and we want to at least get an episode out every week or two. We mentioned ideally we have at least one per week. So as long as guests keep agreeing to come on and people keep tuning in, we'll continue to pump out the episodes, and we appreciate you listening as always. Thanks as always to Julie Bronder for producing the show, and to everyone out there for continuing to tune in, or if it's your first time, Thank you for listening, and I just wanted to issue a reminder that you can find the Take 10 podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, pretty much anywhere where podcasts are found these days. And then we also are on YouTube. If you've been listening in traditional podcast format, don't forget you can see these interviews as well, see the guests, see their reactions to my questions on YouTube. It's a Big Ten Network's YouTube channel, and there's a playlist for every Take 10 podcast episode. Please like, rate, review, all that good stuff while you're there, and keep coming back each week, and we will talk to you soon here on the Take 10 podcast.